of medicating dangerously. It was 1986, and we didn't know if the capsules we took to relieve our pain would kill us instead. We did breathe a little easier when a jury convicted Stella Nickell of planting the poison in headache capsules that killed husband Bruce and random victim Sue Snow. But the uneasy feelings came back as we tried figuring out how Nickell went from housewife to deadly tamperer. Prosecutors said Nickell wanted her husband's insurance, but this man says the facts of the case are a lot more twisted. Gregg Olsen spent 3 years getting the only interviews Nickell has ever granted. His book, Bitter Almonds, the true story of mothers, daughters, and the Seattle cyanide murders, shows a woman part victim, part monster. Was she a monster?
I actually liked her, which really surprised me because I had heard so many bad things about her that when I went down there, I was sort of afraid of her. You know, there was something there that her press was so negative, but when I met her, I liked her. There was something vulnerable about her that I hadn't expected.
But this isn't a story of whether Nickell is guilty of product tampering. A federal jury decided that 5 years ago. This is a story of a reclusive criminal mind, her troubled life, her bitter relationship with the daughter who sent her to prison, and former supporters now convinced she's guilty. Willie Stewart is Stella's niece and former supporter.
I do believe she's guilty.
Stewart didn't always believe that. She believed Durant was the victim of a hateful daughter out for a $250,000 reward and the victim of circumstantial evidence. Evidence like Durant's fingerprints on library books about poison. In a tape-recorded interview, Stella tells writer Gregg Olsen she read those books after coroners ruled her husband's death natural.
I went and looked up the reactions, definitions, whatever you may want to call it, of cyanide in the encyclopedia. I looked up nicotine. I looked up emphysema because I wanted to know why all pathologists at the hospital got pulmonary emphysema mixed up with cyanide poisoning.
Stella's daughter, Cynthia, was the prosecution's star witness, telling investigators about the library books and telling them of another book they'd never find, a diary, supposedly hiding her mother's secret plans of getting rid of her husband. That and a deadly cache of foxglove seeds to be put in his coffee. Willie Stewart thought Cynthia was lying at the time, but after the trial, she searched her aunt's belongings and allegedly found both items. The things you found, the diary, the seeds, what happened to them?
I destroyed them.
Why?
Because, you know, we're talking my aunt. You know, we're not talking about somebody down the road. And at the time I discovered them, there was talk about an appeal. There was talk about possibly getting back into court. And when I found them, I didn't want anybody dragging me into court and forcing me to testify against my Aunt Stella.
Olsen says through it all, Stella sticks to the claim she is innocent, the victim of a bitter child who never got over a childhood beating, one that sent Cynthia to the hospital and Stella to jail.
Cindy hated her mother. She was a competitor of her mother for men, for attention, for money, for everything. I don't think that was a loving relationship at all. Bother.
The competition didn't stop there.
Another reason she suggested was that Cindy was in love with Stella's husband, Bruce. And when Bruce rebuffed her, I think Stella wanted me to believe that Cindy killed Bruce because she couldn't have him, didn't want her mom to have him.
In those audio tapes, Stella deflects much of the responsibility for what has happened onto her daughter, Cynthia. But she never comes out and directly accuses Cynthia of being involved.
I don't believe Aunt Stella is capable of betraying her own daughter because I don't believe Aunt Stella is a revengeful person.
Now that's important because Stella hints at it a great deal in these audio tapes, saying her daughter knew more than the typical innocent bystander. Now, Cynthia was never charged with a crime. Stella says the feds passed over her daughter and went straight for her.
If they believed her and believed that to be the truth, she could just easily be gotten on conspiracy. An accomplice, either before or after the fact.
Yeah, then why didn't they?
That's what you call plea bargaining.
U.S. attorneys deny striking a deal with Cynthia. Stella calls it a miscarriage of justice, robbing her of her life and rewarding her daughter with $250,000. Cynthia vanished with the money years ago, never to be seen again. Nothing about this case is simple, not even for the man who spent years piecing it together. One thing is clear, though. Stella won't be the heroine of this book.
So is Stella Nickell the victim of the century?
No, I think she's involved in this crime. I don't think she's innocent of the crime.
It's a lurid tale filled with the stuff bestsellers are made of. Rivalry, hatred, betrayal, death, even destroyed relationships. Haley Snow knows all about destroyed mother-daughter relationships. Her mother, Sue Snow, was the other tampering victim.
That's the really chilling aspect of this crime, is that you or I or anybody anywhere that uses a headache remedy could have been killed by Stella Nickell.